Perilaku hewan adalah ilmu perilaku hewan atau ilmu perilaku satwa atau juga disebut etologi adalah suatu cabang ilmu zoologi yang mempelajari perilaku atau tingkah laku hewan, mekanisme, serta faktor-faktor penyebabnya. Meski sepanjang sejarah telah banyak naturalis yang mempelajari aneka aspek dari tingkah laku hewan, disiplin ilmu etologi modern umumnya dianggap lahir di sekitar tahun 1930-an. Tak kalah biologi berkebangsaan Belanda Nicholas dan Conrad, biologi dari Australia, mulai merintisnya. Atas jerih payahnya, kedua peneliti ini kemudian dianugerahi hadiah Nobel dalam bidang kedokteran pada tahun 1973. Ilmu perilaku hewan pada keseluruhannya merupakan kombinasi kerja-kerja laboratorium dan pengamatan di lapangan yang memiliki keterkaitan yang kuat dengan disiplin ilmu-ilmu tertentu semisal neuroa, anatomi, ekologi, dan evolusi.
Baik, setelah slide sebelumnya itu dijelaskan oleh rekan saya mengerti pengertian perilaku dan tentang cerita-cerita pada peneliti zaman dahulu, saya akan menjelaskan tentang faktor apa saja yang mempengaruhi perilaku hewan. Di antaranya itu ada faktor lingkungan. Lingkungan itu sangat berpengaruh terhadap keadaan jiwa dan tingkah laku pada hewan. Hal ini meliputi lingkungan kimiawi dalam sel, kondisi hormonal, kondisi kimiawi, serta kondisi fisik yang dialami oleh seekor hewan yang sedang berkembang di dalam sel telur atau di dalam rahim. Selanjutnya itu ada jenis perilaku pada hewan. Jenis perilaku pada hewan itu sendiri terbagi menjadi dua. Yang pertama itu adalah perilaku bawaan atau innate behavior. Yang kedua ada perilaku hasil pembelajaran atau yang disebut juga dengan learned behavior. Yang pertama, perilaku bawaan adalah perilaku yang dikendalikan secara genetik, meliputi taksis, refleks, naluri, pelepasan perilaku naluria, perilaku ritme, dan jam biologis. Yang kedua, perilaku hasil pembelajaran. Perilaku ini berdasarkan pengalaman yang didapatkan organisme dan menghasilkan perubahan perilaku seperti kebiasaan, ketempatria atau tangkap tiru, respon yang diperlazimkan, pelaziman, instrumental, motivasi, konsep, bahasa, dan memori. Setelah slide sebelumnya saya jelaskan faktor apa saja yang mempengaruhi perilaku hewan dan jenis perilaku pada hewan. Di sini saya akan menyampaikan komponen yang mempengaruhi perilaku pada hewan. Yang pertama itu ada programming atau pemrograman sebelumnya. Genetik membuat organisme terpengaruh untuk merespon rangsangan atau stimulus tertentu. Yang kedua itu ada praktis atau berlatih. Pengalaman mempengaruhi perkembangan perilaku. Yang ketiga ada potential atau potensi. Status kejiwaan dari hewan tersebut untuk menunjukkan perilakunya. Yang keempat ada performance atau pelaksanaan. Menghasilkan rangkaian dari tindakan dan perubahan yang menyertai perilaku. Lalu selanjutnya ada manfaat dan tujuan mempelajari perilaku hewan. Di antaranya adalah untuk mengetahui ilmu yang mempelajari tentang hewan. Dan kedua, untuk mengetahui bentuk-bentuk perilaku hewan. Dan yang ketiga, untuk mengetahui macam-macam dan contoh dari perilaku hewan tersebut.
Mummy!
Where are you?
Behind you! Look for me!
You're always hiding from me.
Here I am! I love to play hide and seek. I hide inside the sea anemone. I'm so curious. I love looking around.
There is an ocean of salt water around us.
I love to swim with my clownfish friends in this nice warm water.
It's warm because we live in the tropical ocean.
Mummy, what's behind the sea anemone? I would like to get to know other fish as well.
Look at the neighbors. They're very busy with their eggs. See?
hatch as well, Mum?
Yes, one day you, along with all your brothers and sisters, hatched in our sea anemone.
Do our neighbours have their own sea anemone, just for themselves?
Yes, they do, and their children can swim around just like you. She's protecting them by using her burning arms.
But she won't burn us, right, Mummy?
Our striped body is covered by a glossy coat. Not every fish has such a coat. Those fish should stay away from the sea anemone.
And there is lots of tasty food.
Right you are. Here we are safe and have lots of yummy food.
Mummy, do you think she's happy that we live inside her?
Of course she is. She appreciates all the good care we give her.
I don't know. She won't let any other fish in.
That's right. Only we, and maybe an occasional crab, can hide inside the sea anemone.
The crab has his shell, which protects him. But is he also afraid sometimes?
Yes, he's afraid of the octopus. His shell won't protect him against her.
Sometimes I like to look at the other fish. I think that striped ones are the prettiest.
I agree. The clownfish has only 3 stripes on an orange body, but some of our relatives have lots of stripes.
Mummy, look! This fish lives close to us, right?
Yes, that's our neighbour. Hello, neighbour. How are you today?
I see her here every day. Gosh! And these neighbours have a different sea anemone and different stripes.
Yes, each of us has a different body colour and different stripes.
And what about these fish? I can barely see them. How do they make their camouflage?
They have special markings on their fins, which look like the eyes of a huge fish.
Looks like the neighbours are a little bit afraid of them.
They also have special markings that make the other fish think they're really big. That's why the other fish don't bother them. Look at our neighbours with their sea anemone.
Wow! Mummy! There are so many colours and shapes. There are so many things to see underwater. What's the name of those creatures that have eyes on their sticks?
Those are hermit crabs. They have little houses which shelter their fragile bodies. They carry them on their back. Where are you? Are you hiding again? Come on, you know that clownfish shouldn't stray far from their sea anemone. Also swimming down here are fish that like to eat clownfish for dinner.
That's why we can't swim to visit other clownfish.
Yes, and because their sea anemone would find out that we don't belong there.
I don't understand.
Every sea anemone has her own family and won't let anyone else in.
And what would happen if someone else tried to come in, Mum?
She would burn them. That's the way she defends her family.
And what about our glossy coat? Wouldn't it protect us?
Nope, but thanks to this coat, we can safely live only in our sea anemone. And the others can live only in theirs. Like here, see?
What a smart house the clownfish has. Right, Mum?
Smart and beautiful.
My beautiful house. I like you most of all. Mummy, the neighbours are saying that their house is most beautiful. How come?
Everyone thinks their house is the most beautiful. They like theirs the same way as you like ours.
Gee, Mum, those fish are playing catch-up. Like you and me. In our sea anemone. I want to play too.
But you know we can play only around our sea anemone, like our neighbours only play around theirs.
And I know. If I had to swim away, I would be afraid. I'd rather stay with you, and I'll see anemone. Maybe sometime I can just look around. Hey, sea anemone! Did you know that there are other bigger fish than me swimming around? They're even striped, like me. I'd rather swim back to you. These look friendly. Maybe I could swim with them for a while.
Enough of swimming around. Come back here, quickly. You're too little and I'm afraid for you.
Okay, Mum, I'm coming.
Seems like you haven't been listening to me, right? Who are you talking to, son?
With our sea anemone, of course. Who did you think I was talking to?
Aha! All right. Pardon my butting in.
Wait, Mummy, I want to ask more. Mummy, look over there at the neighbours. Something weird is swimming there. Can you hear it? Sea anemone let something weird come into their house. It doesn't even look like a fish.
Those are prawns. They're transparent creatures. They are looking for the guardian.
Wow, Mummy, look at the alert. What's happening? The neighbours are hiding away.
Hurry, my son. Come to me. Over there, Moray the eel is sticking her ugly head out of that hole.
She looks hungry. I don't like her at all. Lucky for us, we are faster than her, right?
It's just an illusion. She may look like she's slow, but when the prey gets close, she jumps at it and catches it. Every smart creature who sees the moray should quickly hide, like our neighbors just did. Don't even stick out your flipper.
I won't. I don't want her to eat me.
Silent, be quiet. Look at our neighbors, how careful they are. Seems like the moray changed her mind. She's going back into her dark hole.
Oh, Mummy, she was so ugly. I might like her more if she was colourful or striped, like us. Or like our neighbour.
But it's not to be. Everyone is different, which is how it should be. The moray is the way she's supposed to be.
Like these small prawns. I like them more.
You like them because you're not afraid of them, right?
You got me there, Mum.
But the prawns are not like striped fish at all. Some of them are transparent, like the surface of the water.
Mummy, were you afraid that something bad will happen to me?
When danger is close, every mother looks for her babies. She has to take care of them and protect them, even against the moray.
So, among so many neighbours, how should I recognise who would eat me for dinner?
Well, you never know for sure, but it's a good idea to hide in our sea anemone if you come across something bigger than you. Some are hard to spot, and some can look like their surroundings. And some can combine the two. There are many options.
Gosh, look, that's a hermit crab. I know him.
A hermit crab? Where? I don't see him.
There! Look closer! There he goes!
Are you making fun of me? There's nothing there.
But he was there! I saw him! He carried his house, just like you told me.
Ah, you're right. I see him now. He has the color of the sea bottom.
He scared the pretty fish next door.
No, he didn't. She behaves like that all the time.
Mummy, I want to ask you something.
I think that's enough for today. Find yourself a comfy spot inside of the sea anemone.
The straight neighbour says she's getting a headache from all my questions. She said she needs to find a more quiet place. Look! Mr. Crab covered himself by the sea anemone. Do you think he's going to sleep?
Yes, he's getting ready to sleep through the night.
But I'm not tired yet. And it's not even dark.
Mr. Crab knows that everyone should take their rest so they will have enough strength.
So, can I at least wait until dark? Will you say goodbye to the humans?
I sure will. Dear humans, it's up to me to say goodbye. I hope you liked our world. So farewell, and don't forget your friends, the clownfish.
Baik, kita barusan menyaksikan cuplikan video yang digambarkan oleh keluarga ikan clownfish atau ikan badut yang lebih populer dengan nama Nemo. Dari situ kita dapat mengetahui ketika mengamati sesuatu kita dapat mendapatkan banyak sekali hal seperti yang dilakukan oleh sang pembuat video dengan mengamati keluarga Nemo. Dia dapat pula mengamati biota-biota yang lain ada di perairan terkhusus di ekosistem karang. Dari situ kita ketahui kebiasaan-kebiasaan ikan Nemo, belut, bahkan biota-biota lain. Bahkan sang pembuat video dapat menceritakan seolah-olah dia menjadi seekor ikan dan keluarganya yang dapat menceritakan kehidupan keseharian ikan. Nah, itu merupakan fungsi dari etologi yang kita pelajari. Jadi selain dapat kita mengetahui apa saja kebiasaan-kebiasaan mereka, kita seolah-olah bisa menceritakan kehidupan mereka sehari-hari, bahkan di dalam laut sekalipun. Baik, selanjutnya kita akan membahas tentang penelitian pendekatan pada bidang etologi. Pada dasarnya pendekatan di bidang etologi ada tiga, yaitu pendekatan eksperimental, pendekatan deskriptif, dan penafsiran perilaku. Yang pertama adalah pendekatan eksperimental. Pendekatan ini ditujukan untuk mengatasi masalah ataupun memanipulasi kebiasaan yang organisme lakukan menjadi kebiasaan di luar kebiasaan organisme, namun tidak mempengaruhi tumbuh kembang organisme yang bersangkutan. Seperti contohnya adalah anak sapi yang bergantung pada induknya. Namun pada bidang peternakan, induk sapi ini juga dimanfaatkan air susunya untuk diambil susunya dan dagingnya. Permasalahannya adalah ketika anak sapi tidak mendapatkan susu dari induk aslinya, dia akan stres dan memperlambat tumbuh kembangnya. Nah, kegiatan ini dilakukan untuk mengatasi masalah tersebut, terutama untuk memanipulasi bagaimana caranya anak sapi tersebut tetap bisa bertumbuh kembang dengan baik tanpa menyusui dari induknya. Dalam sebuah penelitian dilakukan penutupan mata ketika bayi sapi lahir hingga dia tumbuh dewasa. Dengan cara begitu, anak sapi tidak tergantung pada induk aslinya, namun dia bisa menyusui pada induk-induk lainnya, bahkan dapat menyusui dari susu buatan manusia.
Baik, di sini saya akan melanjutkan pembahasan dari Guru Adi Prabowo tentang penelitian pendekatan. Tadi yang sudah dijelaskan oleh Guru Adi Prabowo bahwa menurut etologi terdapat 3 pendekatan. Yang pertama ada pendekatan eksperimental, yang kedua ada pendekatan deskriptif, dan yang ketiga ada penafsiran pendekatan. Yang tadi sudah dijelaskan oleh Guru Adi Prabowo adalah pendekatan eksperimental, dan saya akan melanjutkan pembahasan tentang pendekatan deskriptif. Pendekatan deskriptif, pendekatan ini lebih pada pengamatan terhadap suatu organisme secara terus-menerus dalam jangka yang lama, baik itu disengaja sebagai penelitian maupun tidak disengaja, seperti halnya para pembudidaya. Biasanya para pembudidaya ini dapat mendeskripsikan perilaku atau kebiasaan yang dibudidayakannya tanpa harus melakukan penelitian khusus, karena para pembudidaya ini sudah mengetahui segala proses yang dibudidayakannya. Jadi mereka sudah mengetahui perilaku atau kebiasaannya, dan setelah itu langsung biasanya menuliskan dalam sebuah buku maupun jurnal. Oke, saya akan melanjutkan pembahasan yang ketiga, yaitu ada penafsiran perilaku hewan. Penafsiran perilaku hewan ditujukan untuk menggambarkan kebiasaan hewan yang memiliki tujuan tertentu dalam siklus hidupnya. Seperti halnya induk kuda yang menjilati anaknya yang baru lahir. Di sini kita mendapatkan alasan yang logis. Mengapa induk kuda menjilati anaknya yang baru lahir? Karena anak yang baru lahir tidak dapat berdiri dengan baik. Maka dari itu, induk kuda tersebut memberikan rangsangan dengan cara menjilati kaki anaknya agar anaknya tersebut dapat berdiri dengan baik. Oke, saya akan melanjutkan pembahasan tentang prinsip dasar perilaku hewan. Di dalam prinsip dasar perilaku hewan terdapat 3 dasar. Yang pertama itu adalah perilaku merupakan respon terhadap perubahan. Yang kedua, tidak semua rangsangan akan direspon oleh organisme. Dan yang ketiga, perilaku hewan tidak selalu bisa ditebak. Yang pertama saya akan jelaskan adalah perilaku merupakan respon terhadap perubahan. Setiap organisme liar pada dasarnya memiliki respon terhadap setiap stimulus yang berdampak pada mereka. Stimulus itu tentu direspon dalam berbagai hal, seperti ketika merasa terancam, hewan cenderung akan lari atau bersembunyi.
Baik, sekarang saya akan melanjutkan materi yang telah dijelaskan oleh Pak Hasan. Sebelumnya Pak Hasan telah menjelaskan tentang perilaku merupakan respon terhadap rangsangan. Sekarang saya menjelaskan tidak semua rangsangan akan direspon oleh organisme. Semua organisme mempunyai kepekaan terhadap rangsangan atau iritabilitas sehingga mereka bereaksi terhadap rangsangan. Organisme terkadang tidak merespon yang bukan kebiasaannya. Contohnya hewan herbivora yang tidak tertarik dengan energi. Dan respon organisme dapat berkurang apabila mendapat stimulus yang berulang namun tidak berdampak pada dirinya. Contohnya, ketika penyelam mendekati ikan karang, biasanya ikan cenderung berenang dengan tenang tanpa merasa terganggu karena sudah terbiasa dengan para penyelam. Perilaku hewan tidak selalu bisa ditebak. Organisme merupakan makhluk hidup yang dapat mengatur dirinya sendiri. Tiap-tiap individu memiliki banyak sekali perbedaan, bahkan pada individu kembar sekalipun. Organisme bukanlah robot yang setiap tingkah lakunya dapat diprediksi. Hewan punya kebiasaan-kebiasaan unik layaknya manusia. Hewan juga memiliki bahasa tersendiri yang mereka gunakan untuk berkomunikasi. Contohnya, seperti anjing yang kita pelihara, tentu pasti akan berbeda sifatnya dengan anjing yang dipelihara oleh orang lain, walaupun jenis dan spesiesnya sama. Pengaruh etologi pada domestikasi. Dalam etologi, ada beberapa pengaruh yang dapat kita ambil pada proses domestikasi. Yang pertama, mempermudah dalam keberhasilan domestikasi. Yang kedua, memberikan banyak gambaran mengenai sifat-sifat hewan. Yang ketiga, mempermudah dalam penentuan perlakuan terhadap binatang domestikasi. Yang keempat, mempermudah dalam penganalisaan proses evolusi maupun perbedaan antar individu dalam proses domestikasi.
Hi, it's Mr. Anderson, and in this podcast, I'm going to talk about animal behavior. If you study animal behavior, you're called an ethologist. And so that's ethology, which is the study of animal behavior. But know this, when you study animal behavior, there's a wide continuum of behaviors, and it's going to move all the way from innate behaviors. So this turtle, a sea turtle is born, and it's going to immediately head out to sea. And so these are things that you have from day one. It's a continuum all the way up to complex learned behavior. Like this chimpanzee, you can see, is thinking something pretty profound, I would imagine. And so let's work our way from the innate all the way up to the learned behavior. The first thing that you should know is that an instinct is basically anything that you have from day one. And so if you ever take your finger and put it up next to a baby's hand, the baby will grab onto that, which you might think that's really cute. But if you put it next to their foot, they'll grab onto you as well with their toes. And so this is a grasping reflex that all babies have from day one. And so that's genetically programmed into them. And you can think about it just from an evolutionary perspective. Babies who weren't able to hold on mom over our evolutionary history ended up hitting the ground and not making it very far. And so an example of this in the animal kingdom, we could have the hog-nosed snake. So the hog-nosed snake, basically, when you come up and threaten it, it will spit at you and try to intimidate you. But it doesn't have poison. And so basically, if you get too close and mess with it too much, it'll turn upside down, its head will get thrown back, its tongue comes out, and it starts to ooze like the smell of dead, decaying flesh. Okay, so that's cool, but they have it from day one. In other words, once a hog-nosed snake is born, the minute they hatch out of the egg, they have this behavior. So it's clearly an instinct. Next, we have what are called fixed action patterns. Fixed action patterns is basically when you have a stimuli, it's a series of actions you're going to take to completion. And so it's easier to understand if I give you an example. So this is a greylag goose. Basically, they'll sit on their eggs and incubate their eggs. But if you ever take one of their eggs out and put it next to the nest, they'll basically take their beak and they're going to pull that back into the nest. And so they can sit on it. And you might think that's a really smart goose. However, if you take like a billiard ball, something that you play pool with, and put it next to their nest, they're going to pull that in. Or a light bulb, they'll pull that in and sit on it. And you might think that's a stupid goose. But if you think about it, through their history, they never really needed to evolve a better way to discriminate between eggs. And so that works well. And there probably wasn't, back in the day, a scientist replacing all their eggs with light bulbs. And so they didn't need to evolve any kind of a better method. Now, you might think, we don't do that. Humans don't show fixed action patterns, but you do. If somebody ever sees you and you recognize somebody, but you weren't looking for them, you'll go like this to them. So you'll be like, hey, how's it going? And when you do that, what you're doing is lifting your head up, your eyebrows are going to come up, and you do what's called an eyebrow flash. And you don't even know that you're doing it, but once you see somebody do it to you, then you have to do it back to them. Try this out. I do it on students all the time. It's really fun. Next, we have what's called imprinting. Imprinting is basically not learned behavior, but it's going to be something that happens during what's called a critical period in your lifetime. And so in geese, basically they'll imprint on their mother and they'll follow her around until they become older. And so this guy, Conrad Lorenz, basically realized that if he could take the mother out and he could take her place during this critical period of time, then they would follow him. So no matter where he would walk, they would just follow him, thinking that he's mom. Salmon will do the same thing. So they imprint on the chemical smell in the creeks that they're in. And so as they go out to the ocean and come back again, they can find it. But it has to occur during this critical period of time. Next, as we move our way up, is what's called associative learning. You're probably familiar with Pavlov and Pavlov's dog. Basically what happens is you start to associate two stimuli, or one stimuli with some effect. And so, for example, he would work with dogs where he would ring the bell, then he would give them some meat powder, and then he would measure. You can see he's measuring dog spit right here. And so he would basically ring the bell, give them meat powder, ring the bell, give them meat powder. And so they started to associate ringing the bell with eating. And so pretty soon he could just ring the bell, and then they would start to salivate. And so around here we have bears in the spring that come out, and basically what they'll do is raid all the bird feeders. And so they're associating that food with that location, and so years later they can come back to that same place. If you don't want them to do that, you have to remove the stimuli. You have to remove the bird feeder. Next, we have what's called trial and error learning. Trial and error learning, the person who's most associated with this is B.F. Skinner, and he developed something called the Skinner box. So this is kind of an example of that. You put a rat in here, maybe some lights and a little lever. And so basically you can teach them. So let's say when the green light comes on, the rat, if he happens to just touch the lever, then food comes out. And so basically you can teach them really complex behavior using this trial and error. It's kind of how we train dogs, same way. One of my favorite stories of this, I think his name is Joe Klein, developed what's called a crow vending machine. If you just put crow vending machine into YouTube, you'll find it. What he did is he used trial and error learning to basically build a vending machine. He'd put quarters around it and then teach the crows that if they put the quarters inside a slot, then food would come out. And so basically you train them through a series of steps and then let them go, and they'd fly around town, find coins, bring them back, and then he got the money and then they would get the food. So we call this operant conditioning when you're teaching them to do that through trial and error. Next, as we move up, is habituation. Habituation is when you get the same stimuli over and over and over again, and you eventually learn to ignore it. And so this is a prairie dog, and when a hawk comes by or a snake, they'll basically make this scream, and so all the other prairie dogs will head underground. And so what happens with humans is if you go around prairie dogs, they'll do the same thing. But if you don't harm them and you keep going around prairie dogs, eventually they'll habituate to that, and they'll ignore it, and they won't make those calls. Likewise, if we have a sea anemone here and you put shrimp, for example, on a sea anemone tentacle, they'll eat it. And you put shrimp and they'll eat it. But you put a chunk of plastic there, they'll eat it, and put plastic there, and they'll eat it, and put plastic there, and then they'll just ignore it. So they're not getting that food hit, and so eventually they'll habituate to the presence of that plastic. And you can see evolutionarily why this is important. You don't want to always have the same response to every stimuli. Next, we move up to what's called observational learning. Observational learning is watching another organism, and you can see how we're headed up that continuum towards learned behavior. Observational learning is simply watching another organism and mimicking that. And so one of my favorite organisms is the octopus, and basically when you put octopus in an aquarium and you give them a problem, in this case there's a bottle with a lid on the top, and they have to open up that lid and then get to the food inside it. About half the octopi will be able to do that, half won't be able to solve the problem. But if you put an octopi in a adjacent tank, it will watch this one and it will learn how to do that. Right here we have a researcher sticking his tongue out, and then a little monkey is going to stick his tongue out as well. And so a really cool area of research is into what is called a mirror neuron. And so mirror neurons, it sounds a lot like a motor neuron, but a motor neuron allows me to do something like touch myself right here on the head. But a mirror neuron is different. And so if you watch me take my finger and touch myself right there on the head, watch me do that. As I do that, a certain percentage in you of the neurons that allow me to touch my head right here, a certain number of those neurons, I remember it being something like 10%, are also firing in you. And so by you watching me, you're actually learning how to do it by practicing those neurons. And we find this in mammals, and I think it's a pretty cool area of research. And then the last thing I want to finish with is insight. We tend not to see insight lower down this continuum, but let me give you an example. Let me give you a problem. This is called the candle problem. And so basically think of it this way. You're given matches, tacks, and a candle, and I want you to stick the candle to a wall and then light it. And so if I were to give you these objects and put you in a room, you'll eventually try a number of things. You might try to heat the candle up on the side and stick it to the wall. Trust me, it won't work. You could stick tacks in and try to balance it on there. It's also not going to work. You could heat the tacks, still nothing. And so basically you would eventually come up using insight with something like this, hopefully. And so you would have to dump out the tacks and use the tacks as a candle holder. And so it takes a while for you to solve this, and some organisms would never be able to do that because they don't have what's called insight. But chimpanzees do. If I were to put a chimpanzee in a room, put a banana up on the ceiling, give a bunch of boxes in here where the chimpanzee couldn't reach, and just give him or her time, basically he'd be able to solve this problem by stacking the boxes up and getting the banana. And so this is insight. And we don't tend to see insight in really lower level organisms that don't have highly developed brains. But crows, for example, can solve really complex problems. Chimps and primates can solve problems. Dolphins, small-toothed whales can solve that. And so what we find as far as intelligence goes is that you don't need to be intelligent until you really start living socially. And once you start living socially, you have to look out for yourself, but you also have to look for everybody that's around you. And so that's where we get high-level intelligence showing up. But we're just smart enough to get by. And hopefully you're a little smarter now. So I hope that's helpful.
Oke, kita tadi telah menyaksikan cuplikan video mengenai perilaku-perilaku hewan yang dijelaskan oleh seorang profesor. Dalam video tersebut terdapat beberapa hal yang menarik. Di antaranya adalah hewan memiliki insting yang digambarkan oleh seekor ular yang akan menggigit ketika ia merasa terancam. Lalu ada juga angsa. Angsa akan tetap mengerami telurnya ketika Anda memasukkan bola golf di sarangnya, karena angsa hanya melihat dari segi bentuk telurnya tanpa mengetahui apakah itu memang benar telur ataupun bola golf. Lalu ada selalu mengikuti induknya. Seorang peneliti telah mencoba mengambil induk angsa dari anak-anaknya, namun yang terjadi anak-anaknya tetap mengikuti induknya, padahal induknya telah mencoba untuk dipisahkan dari anak-anaknya. Lalu ada juga kemampuan untuk observasi dan belajar. Ini digambarkan oleh tentakel dari gurita. Gurita dapat mengobservasi lingkungannya dengan cara berjalan menggunakan tentakelnya. Tentakel ini memiliki beberapa sensor yang dapat mengetahui lokasi maupun hal-hal yang ada di sekitar lingkungan tersebut. Lalu ada juga simpanse yang dapat belajar dari manusia. Dalam hal ini dicontohkan ketika kita melakukan sesuatu hal dan dilihat oleh simpanse tersebut lama-lama akan mengikuti gerakan kita juga. Lalu ada juga naluri alami yang dimiliki oleh hewan, seperti halnya simpanse yang dikurung dalam suatu kandang dan diberi makan di tempat yang tinggi. Otomatis nalurinya akan bekerja untuk mengambil makanan tersebut bagaimanapun caranya. Itu tadi sedikit penjelasan dari video. Mungkin itu penutup dari kelompok kami. Baik, itu tadi penjelasan dari kelompok kami. Terima kasih telah melihat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.